What came alive in me tonight? I think I got more at ease with the people as the evening went on, and more at ease with myself. But I'm not sure what went on. Rumi says, "This day I cannot say," and I can't say what goes on inside of me. I've written poetry all my life, and that always tries to say the inner life, but I would, rather say it in poems. Yeah. It began with three strands, really. In 1976, Robert Bly handed me some book of scholarly translations of Rumi by A.J. Arbery. And he says, "These poems need to find relief, be released from their cages." And he meant by that they need to be taken out of the scholarly translation language and put into more of the tradition of American free verse of Walt Whitman and William Carlos Williams and Galway Kinnell and Robert Bly himself. And so I started doing that and just got hooked on it and began doing it every day. And in 1984, after that had gone on about 7 years, I got a book published in Threshold Books in Putney, Vermont, and it was called Open Secret, and it won a Pushcart Prize because William Stafford liked it. And then the second strand of getting me into the Rumi work was a dream I had on May the 2nd, 1977. In the dream, I was sleeping outdoors on the bluff above the Tennessee River, where I grew up on the campus of a boys' school. My father was a headmaster. And I woke up inside the dream. I was still asleep, but I was awake. It was lucid dreaming. And a ball of light rose off of Williams Island, right across the river, and came over me. And the ball clarified from the inside out. And a man was sitting in there. Somebody I'd never seen. But he raised his head from the shawl he had over his head. He raised his head and he said, "I love you." And I said, "I love you too." And as I said that, I'm so glad I said that, and I meant it. And the whole landscape filled with moisture, as was natural, because it was the dew forming. But somehow I felt the formation of the dew, and the dew was love. So that the moisture of the world is love. Anyway, that's what that was the end of the dream. And then a year and a half later, I met the man in that dream. His name was Bawa Muhyiddin, and he told me that this Rumi work had to be done. So I think it's the only credential I have for doing the Rumi work. I don't know Persian, but I worked with the scholars who do, but that connection with Bawa Muhyiddin is, I think, the only validity I have, because he was the real thing, and he sang spontaneous songs like Rumi, and I would go visit him 4 or 5 times a year in his room there in Philadelphia, where he lived on Overbrook Avenue, And of course, he would come to me in dreams, in various dreams, and teach me things. One time he came and taught me that I should take tiny sips. Tiny sips, I said, "Bob, what does that mean?" And he said, "It means you want to be wise too quickly. So just take a tiny sip and take that in." And the third strand is even more incredible than a precognitive dream. I say I was raised on the campus of a boys' school, and at about age 5 or 6, I loved maps and globes, and I got the 1943 Rand McNally Atlas for Christmas, and that was all I wanted. And I still got that atlas, and I just pored over the maps and the table of contents, and I memorized all the countries, all the capitals of all the countries in the world, so that as I walked across the quadrangle to go to supper, people would call out names of countries to me, and I would yell back the answer. Like a smart aleck kid, they would yell Paraguay, and the little kid would say Ascension, or they would yell Bhutan, and he would say Thimphu. And so finally, the Latin teacher, a real ecstatic, James Augustus Pennington, went down into his classroom and got a country that didn't seem to have a capital. And he came up and yelled across the quadrangle at me, "Cappadocia! Cappadocia!" Yeah. And my perfect mind had no answer for that. And so he said, the look on my face when that happened named me. So I was named. People still call me Cappadocia in Chattanooga, where I grew up, or Cappadocia. And I almost fell down when I realized, years later, that the capital of Cappadocia was Iconium, or Konya, where Rumi lived and is buried. So the universe just played a little joke on me, and they said, maybe he'll get it, maybe he won't, but I got it. But in some ways, I still don't know the capital of Cappadocia. I'm still should be named for my ignorance. Yeah. I have a lot of borrowed knowledge from Rumi and Shams, but very little on my own, Well, yeah. That's the three-part story of that connection to Rumi. But it keeps deepening and keeps expanding. I have to say I don't get tired of it for some reason. I don't get tired of this work. And now particularly that it has moved on from the odes and the quatrains to the Masnavi, an unbelievably complex, gorgeous, 64,000-line poem that he wrote over the last 12 years of his life. And so I'm working on that now. No, I work with scholarly translation. Oh, yeah. And particularly the work of John Moyne has been helpful to me. John is now passed on, but and the work of Reynold Nicholson, late 1920s. And so I work with scholarly translations, and then I rephrase those translations into modern American free verse English. So that's the work I have to do. Maybe I've wasted my life. I hope not. Yeah. but I just keep on doing it, yeah. Coleman is all tangled up into the process of bringing what I call Rumi into American free verse. So the French say translation is betrayal. It has to be translation, of a poem has to be betrayal. And I think that's right. It has to be distorted. How could you translate King Lear into Chinese? You can't. I mean, come, let's away to prison, you and I. We two alone will sing like birds in a cage. When thou dost ask me blessing, I will kneel down and ask of thee forgiveness. And so we live and love and laugh and tell old tales. And hear poor rogues talk of court news, and we'll talk with them too. Who's in, who's out, who wins, who loses, and take upon us the mystery of things, as though we were God's spies. That's Lear talking to Cordelia then. But you can't translate that into any other language. It's just its own gorgeous music. And the same with Rumi. You cannot translate him into American English. If you listen to him spoken in Persian, you'll see. You will rhyme 7 or 8 lines in a row, and just, when you do that in English, it becomes a joke. It becomes, after the 3rd line, it's a limerick. You can't rhyme that many lines in English, but he's just densely musical. And so, of course, it's a distortion, but I hope somehow, through the agency of this Sufi teacher, that I am able to bring something of the essence of Rumi into English. But and sometimes the people who speak the original Persian say, yes, something is coming through. And they say, particularly, I'm sensitive to the playfulness in Rumi. Rumi is full of playfulness in Persian. He puns and rhymes all the time, and you can't translate a pun, I just, somehow, I try to bring what I hear as I hover over a Rumi poem in translation. I try to bring something new into being in English. And I hope it's alive. That's all I want. I want the words to have energy and life, like they evidently do in Persian. Hope so. I hope so. Yeah. And there's some kind of life inside words, inside the arrangement of words. And particularly when they get spoken, Rumi says that you don't know what a poem is saying until you speak it out loud. So it's good to hear them out loud, the poems, and I hope that something comes through the language I have written that corresponds to something that came through his. He says he became a poet, really, when he met Shams, Shams Tabriz. And then he began just flowing with poems. And when he published his collective book of poems, he calls it Divani Shamsi Tabriz, the works of Shams Tabriz. In other words, that if he hadn't known Shams, the poetry would not exist. So it's a tandem creativity. Somehow the two of them together in their friendship generate the poetry. And that's true, you can call it a muse or the friend or the beloved or whatever. Somebody helps sometimes with works of art, almost always, I think. The inspiration comes in, and somehow the work of art comes into being through friendship, Yeah. It's so central to Rumi's theology, and Shams too. Shams says, if I said all that I know, you would want to kill me. What he said, I think, and then he says, in another place that if the Kaaba were lifted out of the world, not there, taken away, and all the Quran and all the sacred relics that we have, you could take away all cathedrals and all the Jewish scriptures and all the shamanic drawings on rocks and take away all those things we love that are supposed to be reminders of the presence. And we would be left with what is truly sacred, which is the way two human beings recognize the soul in each other. He says that is the core of sacredness. But he expected them to be killed, because he's taken away everything that, a good Muslim loves. The Quran and the Kaaba, going on Hajj, and you just left for friendship with each other. That's the most sacred thing. And so that friendship in him generated the poetry, a friendship with Shams. And so this new book I have, Soul Fury, is about that friendship. And it brings into being, in English, hopefully in a powerful form, the sayings of Shams Tabriz. So you get to have you get to hear him a little bit,